I'm Sally Tierney, the owner of Clear Path Forward, an advocacy investigation firm in Virginia, and I love listening to the PI Perspective podcast because Matt interviews so many investigators that bring their unique expertise to the show. I've learned so much from them and look forward to every single episode. Thank you, Matt.
The Campbell Group offers best-in-the-industry pricing, service, and coverage for private investigators. With more than 25 years of experience in the industry and over 3,000 PIs insured nationally, the Campbell team has the expertise to make sure you have the coverage you need. Submit an application and receive a quote within 24 hours. Let them know you're a PI Perspectives listener on your application for $50 off your yearly premium. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigator's Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. We're wishing all our listeners a happy Memorial Day. We want to especially thank our listeners who have served or have loved one that is serving or has served. This country is great because of these people, so thank you. Today we have a great show. California PI Justin Hodson joins us. Matt and Justin started companies about the same time and have grown their businesses to mid-sized to large firms. There is a formula and secret to making things work. The guys talk about it today. So please welcome Justin Hodson and your host, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today, I'm really happy to have somebody on here who, we've been following each other on LinkedIn forever. I feel like I know the dude because I've just seen so many postings. He's got a really good social media team, and we've celebrated each other's victories. And he's kind of scaled up his business, and that's where I am in my career right now. And I asked Justin to come on, so we got Justin Hodson coming on from Hodson PI, just to kind of talk about some of the challenges and stuff. So Justin, I want to welcome you to the program.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I want to say that, one, very flattered, a fan of the podcast, and of course, we've been following each other, and it's an honor to be on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I think it's a long time coming. Definitely, you're a mover and a shaker, and the more we talked, like offline before we started recording, I was like, wow, this guy's really followed kind of the same path that I've followed, and you're just a few steps ahead of me, which is okay. It's not a competition, not a race.
No,
everything's cool. So, let's lay your background out, though. Tell me a little bit about how you got into the business and
sure,
where you are now.
Yeah, sure. I've been in investigations for over 20 years. I started out very similar to probably a lot of your listeners. Originally started out as a store detective, so loss prevention. And then I answered an ad in the paper. This is back when we had newspapers.
Right.
I answered an ad in the newspaper for investigator trainee, company out of Riverside, California. Mm-hmm. And I was 19, and I was like, there's no way they're going to hire me. Sure enough, they did. Yeah. They threw a camera on my lap and told me to go out in the field. And so I did several years of vehicle surveillance for workers' comp. And after about 3 years, I got enough experience to kind of get an idea of how it works. And I decided, you know what, I wonder if I can do this on my own.
Right.
So in 2003, I went and got my license, started my business, and pretty much the rest is history. I mean, between 2003 to now, I've gone through quite a bit of ups and downs. You know, business is business. We started out in the domestic market where we would do domestic investigations, cheating husbands, that type of thing.
You're in California, just so folks know.
Yeah. And in California, you need about 3 years of experience before you can get your license.
Same in New York. I think it's hours, right? I think it's like 9,000 hours in New York, which equates to 3 years experience.
Yeah, 6,000 hours. So 2,000 hours a year basically comes out to 40 hours a week.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And then, so it started in the domestic market, was there, developed some partners that were interested in getting into that market, expanding my business into that. And then got into insurance defense. So a lot of my work now is the defense. I was solo about 6 years ago,
right.
And hired my first employee 6 years ago, and have been expanding the business since.
Wow, that's such a trajectory, right? So 14 years kind of just doing your own thing. And then one day you say, okay, it's time to ramp up. I want to go back to your comment about 19-year-olds and getting hired, because I had a similar type situation. I wasn't quite 19. I was a little bit older by a few years. But I worked in retail also, right? So I come out of college, first job I get, it's a retail investigation company. They did like mystery shopping, pre-employment screenings, things of that nature, right? So they paired me, and I was 22 at the time, I think, with like a 53-year-old lady from Barbados. So she was Bajan, right? And you would never think we were working together. So we would create these scenarios at registers, giving employees opportunities to steal. And either if she's running out and I'm behind her, or I'm running out and she's behind me. And the second person is just watching what that person does with the entrapment that we're putting out there, right? Here's $20. What are you doing? Yeah. So it's interesting to see, but that's how we get started, right? And what it comes down to, and I was at John Jay College recently, a couple of weeks ago, at basically a seminar, getting people who are interested in the business, giving them topics, which was fantastic. But it's like you got to take those opportunities to get the experience, right? If you have that entrepreneurial core, right, you can't just from day one say, "Hey, I'm going to be an investigator," unless you're in a state or a country that doesn't require licensing, but then you don't have the experience. So who the heck's going to hire you? Getting your foot in the door. So when you first went on your own, Justin, did you have your own clients? Were you subbing out to other investigation companies? What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So in 2003, I decided that I was going to go out on my own. Certainly when you're younger, I think your confidence is a little bit higher in yourself. And at that time, I decided I was going to go out on my own, and I was going to advertise to the public. This is 2003. This was the beginning of Google and the online advertising boom. So I really taught myself how to advertise online, get a website, taught myself HTML up for my website. It's back when HTML was popular. And I advertised to the public. I told them I was a licensed PI. I was experienced in surveillance, which I had at that time about 4 years experience. Mm-hmm. And I was able to work with the public in, cheating husbands, cheating wives type of situations.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a vertical for that. And the thing is, like, if you're looking to start in this industry, like, you will find a job doing that kind of work, because there's a big need for it, and there's a big need for dependable people. So sure. If you're not dependable, I mean, you're not going to succeed in any vertical that you're in. You might as well just call it a day. But if you have the right attitude and you want to learn, and this was some of the stuff that I was talking to the kids at school about, like, what are the up and coming trends, right? How are you going to find that job? Right now it's technology, understanding AI, understanding coding, understanding all these things like that will give you the leg up. Understanding technology with equipment, with surveillance. If you know how to work a camera, and you're kind of good at doing all that stuff, like, you're going to be somebody that gets that second assignment, right? If you understand how to use case management systems, like, that's a game changer. I just hired a guy recently. We use Crosstracks. That's kind of my thing. This guy, he came using TrackOps, right? Which is, kind of the same type of platform. It's really dashboard of what your comfort level is. So getting him up to speed on Crosstracks was easy because he understands, what that's about. So those are the things that kind of give you that that leverage, that one up as to, okay, which contractor I'm going to use here, right? And then once you get that experience, once you've got that under your belt, you've got your hours, you got your own license. Because I think probably in California, I know this is the whole 1099 thing out there, it's been an issue. Are they employees? Are they 1099s? How many hours are they working for you? That's a real deal. But once you establish yourself and you're incorporated and you're doing all the things, like now you can start going out and soliciting on your own, John Q. Public or insurance. See, you and I started in the same place. You went left, I went right. See, I migrated more towards plaintiff because that's where I was cut from, right? You migrated more towards defense because that's where the surveillance work was, and that's your specialty. Sure. I didn't enjoy sitting in a car. For me, I'm like, my brain's running and I'm like, I need to be doing something right now, not looking for that guy to come out the door, understanding that you got to focus on that guy coming out the door, because if you miss it, right? So I wasn't built that way. But it's very interesting that we started kind of similar and then took different terms here. I didn't quite wait 14 years to ramp up, start building up. I think I hired my first employee 2 years in. But it was just the two of us for a very long time. And I don't know if you had this same issue, but the issue that I had with administrative help, I always said, I'm not going to hire somebody that I pay salary to that's not actually doing billable hours. Like that's a sucker's bet. Why would I do that?
Right.
And it was so backwards thinking that way, because that person's going to help you be more efficient. And it's going to enable you to be out in the field more and do what you need to do. So tell me a little bit about your experience with that and admins. When did you realize, like, hey, I need help here?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I was lucky enough to be able to work on my own for a while. And, a lot of people have that decision. They make that choice. They say, hey, look, I don't want to expand my business. I'm happy working the cases that I have. It happened kind of organically, but at the same time, I was like, okay, I can't do this by myself. Mm-hmm. And, I was working, 70 hours a week. I was, missing activities with family on the weekend. Right. And, that's really should be the deciding factor. Some people, you're going to plan to, expand your business, and you're going to want to stage that. You're going to need to invest in an employee so that you have the ability and the flexibility to do things like marketing or meeting with clients and things like that. And some of the busy work can be there. So so 6 years ago, I hired admin, and about 3 months after that, I hired a researcher. Mm-hmm. I taught them the trade. I taught them what I was doing, and started building our culture and our stage off of that. Yeah. And so that was our first stage, was allowing me to have additional time to focus on the company, to focus on advertising, to focus on client relations, because that's a big part. You can be the best investigator in the world, but if you don't have that, if you don't develop that relationship with your clients, and you don't have that communication part of the business, it's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah, and if you don't do that early on, what's going to happen is you're going to shoehorn yourself into being always the investigator, where, hey, how come you're not doing the job? Why did you hand me off to Mike? I don't want Mike. I want Justin. I'm paying for Justin, and like they don't understand that. And I was in that hole for a very long time, and I got to the point where I was like, trust me, you want Mike. You don't want Matt, because right. Matt's doing sales, and Matt's, managing the business, and Matt's, doing these other things. And right. Yeah, Matt knows what he's doing, but Mike, he really is like honed in on that craft, and his background is XYZ, and like he's going to do a more focused job because that's his task. He has right. nothing more to do than your particular assignment and then focusing on getting that done. Whereas the business owner themselves, they're getting pulled in a few different directions, and
Right.
it's hard. So that idea is tough for longtime clients to understand. I have one client I've been doing business like, I don't know, 17 years, and he finally got it. He's like, okay, like, unless it's like, I really need the expertise of your eye on this, we're going to have everybody else on your team do that.
Right.
I want to go back right to the you had mentioned researcher also,
Sure.
and how important that is to have either a dedicated in-house researcher or a 1099 that you actually trust to do, because I think that's another struggle as we're scaling up,
Sure.
that we don't have the proper time to do the research. And if you have somebody you trust, I prefer in-house. I have an in-house person too. And, we're not always super busy with the work that she does. She's very good at what she does, and she's OCD, which is another great characteristic to have for somebody who's a researcher.
Yeah.
But in the downtime, she's getting better at her craft and what she does, and she, helping out with other stuff, which is good. So what was your experience with having that researcher in?
Yeah. So, kind of touch on what you said, and it correlates with this, is that I had the mindset that you have to humble yourself. You want to say, okay, look, I'm a really good investigator, I'm a really good businessman, but you really need to understand that you need that help. And if you find out where you need that help, you hire somebody that that one is either trainable, or two, already has the skills there, and you can kind of mold them into the way that you do it. But I have a mindset of, and I tell my employees all the time, I was like, I hired you because I think you're smarter than me.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, that's the truth. They're going to be better at this one particular job that they applied for. They have the skills and mindset to do this one particular job, being research or admin or surveillance. And they're going to be better at that, while I'm being, like you said, pulled in 10 different directions. I think one of the other problems with scaling up, and just maybe the personality that I have and a lot of the other investigators have, is kind of release that control too. Once you talked about trust, we also need to trust in ourselves. Say, hey, look, I've trained this person. They seem to be doing a good job. I've followed up on their results. I've followed up on their research. Let them do their job.
Yeah.
Let them do their job. And
Trust them.
Trust them. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. So here's the big elephant in the room, though, and I will see where you're at, because this is something I recently have released, and what a feeling. Billing, how much to charge for each thing, right? And making sure the bills come out. So I billing I'm okay with. Where I haven't really released yet is receivables. I'm still looking at all the money that's coming in. Where are you with that?
That's difficult, because you have your client relations, right? And you don't want to be this guy that's completely always hounding your clients.
Yeah.
That's an issue. That's a problem. If you're running a business and you're scaling up and you have a lot of employees, if you're expecting to get a check every week, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen, especially with
you got to do credit lines.
Yep. That's always an option. We've been very fortunate. But we have invoices that are waiting payment 6 months.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to get paid.
Yeah.
These are huge corporations, Geico, Auto Club. Right. I know I'm going to get paid. Yeah. It's sitting on an adjuster's desk, and they forgot to get it.
See, that's the difference between plaintiff and defendant, right? So I made that decision to step away from plaintiff and go more towards, or from defendant and go more towards plaintiff, because I was running into those situations. And I'm like, man, this isn't the bank of Matt Spaier. Like, I got a small shop here,
Yep.
And like, these guys don't give a crap. You'll get paid when you get paid. Or they'll say like, oh, well, the law firm that hired you didn't authorize this particular job. So your $5,000 bill, we'll give you $3,500, take it or leave it. Right.
Yeah.
That happened a few
Yeah.
times to me. And I was like, this is not good. Right.
Yeah.
So,
That's one of the things that's important, is make sure that you have a budget and you have an authorized budget and it's in writing.
Yeah, I actually had, I'll tell the story real quick. I've told it before, but I'll tell it again real quick because it's topical. And then we'll take a quick break. So I had an insurance company that had reached out to me on a referral from, somebody that knew who I was and what I could do and knew I could solve the problem of this particular adjuster, right? So the adjuster reaches out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to do the job. Can you help? And I was like, yes, just send me $5,000. They're like, no, we're XYZ insurance company. And they were national carrier, right? And I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't care who you are. If you want me to do your work, send me a retainer. Like, no. I'm like, okay, well, good luck with your problem. And like 2 weeks later, they call me back to like, who do we make the check out to?
Nice.
Because they knew there was nobody else that was going to solve the problem. And then the problem was being solved because of my relationships, and there was just no other way to do it because it was a relationship based thing. It's not like you could just hire somebody to go sit in the car, do something. It was developing info and, there was an avenue to do it. Right. So it not only was that $5,000, but it was like another $4,000 on top of it. It ended up being, when all is said and done, and the client was really, really happy. But yeah, I don't really do defense work. I can't deal with laying that money out. And as you scale up, that's another issue, right? Payroll. You got to pay people every week. They don't want to hear that, hey, Geico's not going to pay for 6 months, right? That's not the problem. That's your problem.
Right.
And just kind of understanding. So we're going to jump out and take a quick break. And then when we come back in, we'll talk more about the nuts and bolts of scaling up. But you touched on something earlier that I thought was really, really important. I want to hammer down on that. And that's culture,
Sure.
and the correct way to build culture as you're scaling up, and how important that is to get the very best out of the people that you're trusting in doing these things. So when we come back, I really, really want to dig into that because I think there's something there. So everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back as I'm eating my words. Hang in there.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes.
I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with ScopeNow is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of ScopeNow, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that ScopeNow is a part of that suite. ScopeNow.com.
Did you hear about the annual Natalie Conference from June 21st to the 23rd in Charlotte, North Carolina? Frequent show guest Jan Barefoot is the local host for this great event. Speakers include Megan Munoz, Buddy Jericho, Bree Jones, Carrie Kursky, and many others. You can learn more at nallyonline.org, NALIonline.org.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are joined by California licensed private investigator Justin Hodson from Hodson PI. Justin, welcome back to the program.
Thanks.
All right. So we are on two sides of a coin here.
Yeah. Plaintiff and defense. Yeah.
Good and bad. You just pick which side you want to support. But we're both scaling up. And, like I had mentioned earlier, you're scaled up a little bit more than me. I'm just kind of going through the grind right now and doing that. And one of the things that I have noticed, and I've been really, really intentional with my team. And it sounds like you've kind of done the same thing. You touched on it a little before, and we talked about it before we took the break, is culture, is setting team culture. So talk to me a little bit about that. How you identified that, and what do you institute in your business here?
Sure. Yeah. So we at Hodson PI, we have 40 investigators, and that can be a challenge in itself. Not only is it 40 employees, you're also talking about 40 families. Right. You're talking about 40 lives, 40 and their own micro culture. So you try to develop your office culture and your professional culture kind of around that family feel. A lot of people make fun of the whole "we're family." This is a business, we're family. But if you keep that tight knit, you're spending 1/3 plus of your life with these people. They really should be treated like family. Yeah. And you need to understand that life can be difficult, and there's a lot of challenges there. And I think that if there is a two-way street of trust, they trust me, they trust that I'm going to do my best in my job, I trust that they're going to do their best in their job. That does develop a family culture where they feel protected in their position, and they're going to do what they can to protect the business. Yeah. So we try to promote that. We also try to promote fun. This is a stressful job. A lot of investigators can relate that this can be a stressful job. This is not a 9-to-5 bank job. Yeah. This is not a Monday through Friday job. So it can be stressful, and sometimes the days can be long. And so having fun with the stress of the cases and the stress of the investigations, I think, is important. So we try to promote that through either different programs, just going back and forth, having get-togethers, online interactions, and rewards back and forth. I think promote an environment of fun.
Bonuses, team challenges, stuff like that is good. So how has a vehicle like Zoom helped with you? Like, is everybody like remote for you, or do they actually come into a brick and mortar?
So we do. Yeah, we do have an office, and it is fully staffed. Our office is fully staffed. There's 18 of us here in our office in Temecula, and then the rest are remote. We didn't really shut down per se during COVID, but as far as the office goes, but yeah, we have a lot of remote employees. We don't utilize Zoom, but we utilize Microsoft Teams, very similar. And it's constant back and forth. We have chats, we have back and forth meetings, we have weekly management and weekly company-wide meetings where we all get together and we can see each other and see how everybody's doing. Right. We also have Trivia Tuesdays, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
You get a taco if you win, or what?
Actually, that's funny. We have a program. It's through a company called Bonusly. Mm-hmm. And we give out their points, which we call them tacos.
Nice.
And so you can get, let's say 50 tacos, and those points can be converted into gift cards. 50 tacos, I think, is $5. Right. And I mean, there's people making out. I mean, they're pulling down $500-600 a month on their gift cards.
That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't do the gift card thing, but definitely bonuses. I'm a big believer in that, right? And I learned that my first job out of college, right? The guy that hired me to do the mystery shopping, like, he made it a point that once a month that we'd get a little extra in our check, right?
Sure.
It wasn't always a lot. I mean, back then, maybe $100-200, and I was like, wow. As a guy right out of college, I was like, this is great. I can go down the street to the pub and get rounds for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But just having that ownership, and I did feel like as the company was growing, I was growing along with it. And, I think that is a really good tool. I think as a business owner too, like, read books on management, anything by like John Maxwell. Great books. There's another guy named Greg Johnson. He's written a book called How the Mighty Have Fallen. And I highly recommend that. It teaches you basically how to treat your employees, and better. I used to be kind of a tyrant, don't tell anybody, but like when I started, I was kind of a tyrant. And the reason I was a tyrant was that I had this expectation of, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. But not understanding they're never going to do it the way you're going to do it, because it's your company, it's not theirs. Right.
Absolutely.
So don't expect them to have the same effort in doing it. And I would get very frustrated in that. And Greg Johnson actually has another book that's out recently that I recommend. It's called Building Healthy Teams. That's another one. And it's Greg with 2 G's. So if anyone's interested in some really good reading, those are two books. Even podcasting on business stuff. I appreciate everyone listening to PI Perspectives and the Investigator stuff, but you should broaden your horizons and maybe also podcast some business related stuff, because they're people like to talk about this stuff and they like to help you get better at what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I do. Yeah. I like those recommendations. Yeah. It's also about leadership. There's a saying about having a bank of leadership points or credits, right? And being able to not necessarily always tell somebody when they're doing something wrong, but being able to show and like, hey, I made the same mistake before. Exactly. This is how I fixed it, right? And people are going to respect you more if you go around and you say, hey, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, don't do that again. People are not going to respect you as a leader.
Well, I think even that, and you did this wrong, and here's why it was wrong, and here's the results. Like here's that chain of everything that's going to happen now because it was done wrong, and let's try and mitigate that from happening again. Maybe take a little accountability, a little ownership on things. I was just having a conversation this morning with my director of operations, and I was like, listen, I don't police the guys. I don't. I give them like leeway to go and do their things. We're not really a brick and mortar. Everybody's out doing their own thing. In fact, my director of operations lives in a completely different state than we operate in, but we can do it, right? So I'm like, hey, like I give leeway to the guys. I'm not like they don't punch a clock. They just have their work to do. They get it done. They submit their worksheets. It's good. However, if they're required to notify a particular client that something's been scheduled, and I'll do it, and that's part of the job description, and they're not doing it, that's a problem. It's like, I'm giving you that courtesy. You got to show the courtesy back to me and make sure that you're notifying. And it's not intentional. These guys are busy. They're working their butts off, and they just simply forgot, right? So it's like, okay, you just got to give a reminder. Like, hey, Matt's getting that email, or my director of operations getting that email that they don't need to get, because you couldn't hold up your side of the bargain of just shooting a text message saying, hey, this is set for tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Right.
simple stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Them also understanding, okay, so you forgot to do this. Let me tell you what's going to happen next. Client's going to complain and they're going to say, hey, I'm tired of asking, when is this thing? They're like, oh, I just talked to this new potential client and they said you're scheduled to meet with him at 10 a.m. But nobody from your office notified me about that. Why is that happening? Right. So it's that, this is stuff that doesn't need to happen. And just, having them understand in that. So do you do any kind of like 360 review? Do you believe in that kind of stuff with your employees or no?
360 review. What do you mean by that?
Okay. All right. So I'm teaching you something new here.
Yeah, there you go. I'm in a school here.
So a 360 review is like almost like you have everybody on staff basically review their bosses, right? Their direct supervisors and all that. And it's anonymous, right? So you can do it where they're listing some questions and they're answering the questions, or you just, doing, check off the box, type of thing.
Sure. Yeah. I guess we do that. We do that with supervisors.
Okay.
We don't do peer-to-peer, but we do ask subordinates like, hey, how's your supervisor doing? It's an anonymous form that they fill out. It also has particular matrix that we want to know, do you trust them? Do you feel they're good communicators? How do you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel they are as a leader? So we do that, and it is anonymous, so that we hope that we get honest and 100% feedback.
Yeah, I mean, finding those weak links and trying to team build and trying to make sure that they're not afraid to talk either, which is another one too, right? One of the challenges or problems that I have is my guys they're so great at what they do. They get really backlogged with actual like report writing, and they're afraid to like tell me like, hey, I need time off. Like I need time off the road because I got to do some reports. And I'm trying to tell them like, you need to articulate that to me or to the director or to the head of field investigations. And that was one of our choke points, because clients are going like, hey, where's my report? You said it was done 2 weeks ago, but I still haven't seen anything, and just going through my team, and one of the things we do, like when I have that management type meeting, right? When I'm meeting with my director of operations, my billing, my head of field investigations, I treat it like a real board meeting. Here are the minutes. Here's the agenda. Right. Yep. And then my director of operations, here's the minutes from that meeting, right? So there's records of everything. So, hey, what did we talk about last time? Okay, where are we on this now, right? That organization, it seems funny, right? Like, why would you do that? It's just a corporation. No, these are what real corporations do. And if you play with the big boys, like, that's what you have to do. Now, I don't think Justin was doing that 6 years ago. It's just himself, right?
No. But it's interesting. We have it's very interesting that we have these parallels, because I do the exact same thing. Not only is it helpful for us and to make sure that we're state organized, but it also creates a record. Like, hey, we talked about this. We went over this.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as like if you serve on any boards for any nonprofits or anything like that, like they're minutes, they're real meetings. Like Robert's rules are real things, right?
Yeah.
And the more like culture wise you can implement that in, like the more efficient you're going to be and the faster you're going to grow, the happier client you're going to have because they're getting what they need. And, just kind of greasing the wheel there and getting things going. Yeah. It's a challenge to get started, but you'll see that the people that work for you love it.
Yeah.
They love it. Yeah. They love the ability to talk, and they love the ability to kind of get out there. Hey man, I'm having trouble with this, or this client's doing that. Right. So you've got that aspect of it. Then you take it down one level lower where you have like your head of like field investigations now doing it with the team members and going, what are you struggling with? Like what case is giving you a hard time here? And then it's more than one person that's on that call. Like, oh, did you try doing this? Did you try doing that? Sometimes I do this, or I know a guy that can get me this, right? So they're brainstorming on how to get rid of those choke points there and get things moving. And it's great. And what's even better, I'm not on that call.
Yeah.
I don't want to be on that call.
Right.
Like enough going on.
Yeah.
I just want to get the summary. Hey, we had that meeting. Everything's good. Here's things you need to be aware of. Right.
Sure.
So like I've learned that from talking to guys, maybe in your position that have that bigger organization, or more of an international scale, Conflict International. Michael Core is a good friend of mine, and I'm like, hey, what does your day look like? How are you doing things? And seeing how they run it. His model is very interesting because he actually has a non-executive director. He's got a guy that is completely out of the field. He's not an investigator, but he's a business guy, and he's just a numbers guy. Why are we not hitting these goals? How are we doing this? Why are we doing that? Right. And that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But as you're scaling up and as you're doing things, like these are things to keep in mind. I wonder, do you like at the end of the year, do you do like a review of, hey, this is everything we did this year and here are my goals for next year?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a year in meeting, what our goals are for the next year, just kind of a review of where we're at, the health of the business, and then, what our projections are. Luckily for the past 5 years, we've been hitting and above all of our projections. And but yeah, at the end of the year, we typically have that type of meeting, and we try to do our best to predict the future.
Right. All right, Kreskin, relax. It's all good. Yeah, we don't know. One thing I've learned about this business, you can never predict anything. Oh,
absolutely
not. I know it's going to be super busy, Yeah. And it's the winter. There are going to be tons of slip and fall cases because people are going to be falling in ice, and it's like no snow, all winter, right? No. Like you just never know. Oh, it's August. The judges all go on vacation. It's going to be slow. Nope.
Yeah.
You just never know. So
you really don't. You don't. You can invest in certain areas, knowing that, hey, look, we're really busy here. We have an overage of cases here. We need to hire another person in the next 3 months. You can try to invest into advertising and hope that there's return on that marketing and advertising. But in reality, the universe is chaotic, and anything and everything's going to happen. You can try to plan, and it gives you goals and it gives you direction, and you hope that everything works out. But yeah, you never know. There could be a global pandemic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Shelter in place. What is that? I've never heard of it. Oh, it'll only be 2 weeks. That's what they tell us in New York. 2 weeks tops. We'll be shut down for 2 weeks. It's cool. Right. 2 months later, like, hey, is anyone here? What's going on? Oh, thank God that's all over. Yeah. It's crazy because during that time, all joking aside, like when things did slow down, that is when I analyzed my business even harder.
Sure.
Okay, things may change here. How can I be better? Or I'm kind of all over the place with my organization. Like, how do I streamline all this? And that pause allowed me to kind of slow down a little bit and just take a look. Like I dove into the case management because I had case management, but it was my own case management, Excel and whatever, right? Mm-hmm. Excel on Dropbox, right? Yeah, it's a working document. It's great. Everyone can look and do it. All right, how about if we had like a real case management system, right? So I invested in that and really migrated my whole client list into that and said, hey, this is what we're going to do going forward. And that was one of my goals this year, actually, because now it's 3 years now. I'm almost 3 years now. I'm using, actually it's over 3 years now that I'm using case management. And so I'm telling my clients, no more emails. I'm not going to email you this document, this PDF or this report or anything like that. No, you have to actually go into the system now and get it. And I got the client, oh, I don't want to do that. You're creating another step for me. Blah, 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 blah. Like you're getting this pushback. And it's like, okay, do you like the idea of this information being, encrypted and SOC 2 certified, and, we're collecting IDs for people? Maybe it's better that we're not like emailing their driver's license, stuff like that. Like, oh, I never thought of that. Then that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll use this.
That's a great argument. What do you do to continue to build your relationship with your client? Or do you feel like there's anything that was left out there, like as far as the communication and the back and forth?
Well, here's the beautiful part about this system. And I don't know if you use case management at all, but there's a note system in there where they could actually give feedback. We can send them notes. They can give instructions on how to proceed on cases. Budget wise, they can see where you're at budget wise, right? So you have that back and forth, and it's more efficient. right?
Sure.
Because also it'll ping you when they send a message, right? So ping, okay, so-and-so law firm wants this done now. All right, let me
Sure.
mobilize and get the team going, right? So it's a lot of heavy lifting to get them on board with it, but I have found that once they drink the Kool-Aid, they're all in. They want another glass.
Right.
Saying, "Oh
Right.
yeah," you know,
Right.
which is good. And it you know, but I also had to realize that there are some of my clients are just not going to do it, and
Sure.
I have to make a choice. Like when I'm
Sure.
and you know, that's why I have an operations guy that you're responsible for this.
Right.
I want to deal with
Right.
it, right? But you brought up a good point, right? You want to make sure that you have that, you still have that relationship, that person to person relationship.
Vital.
It's not via email or messaging and all that. That's where you and I come in, right? That's what our role is.
Sure.
Hey,
Absolutely.
can I drop by? You know, just want to say hello. Maybe take out to lunch, or can I come and review some cases that maybe you're having trouble with, or you don't know where to do? Like, I'll come in for 2 hours and bring out a couple cases and let's take a look at them. You're like, that's what you and I should be doing, right? That's building the business, building the rapport,
Right.
doing stuff like that. You know, the whole nitty gritty back end stuff. That's some other guy and some other job, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
that I think is probably the best way to do it. How do you handle when you have a problem with somebody on staff, somebody that's not cutting the mustard, that's not having that culture? Do you have specific policies in place, you know, in dealing with that? And what would you recommend to somebody who's scaling up when that comes across this stuff?
Well, it's certainly going to happen. I can tell you right now that if you're going to have employees and you're staffing up, you're going to have situations that are uncomfortable for you as a manager and as a business owner. Right. You're going to have situations where you do have to have a one-on-one and discuss somebody's performance, which can always be difficult. You know, it's a difficult conversation. We do have a pretty extensive policy in place for different issues and problems that come into place. One of the things that we do use is what we call a PIP, and it's a performance improvement plan. Okay. And so we try to develop, okay, well, what are the issues at hand, and what can we do to try to improve them? We give goals and guidance on okay, this is what we're going to do. Sometimes the problem's more serious than that, and you may need to terminate somebody, and those are always difficult. Yeah. It's also difficult in California. We have quite a lot of rules that we have to follow, and I'm sure New York is probably the same or similar. Right. But it can be uncomfortable, and but yeah, making sure that you have a good policy in place, and you're like, hey, we're talking about predicting the future. You need to be prepared for these types of things because they're going to happen. Right. And having a policy in place and having a procedure in place, you hope that they don't, but they're going to happen. And having guidance for yourself as a supervisor and a manager, I think is vital, important. Yeah, no, and you get called to the carpet. You want to be able to, you know, show, you know, what was done, chances that were given, you know, discipline or the quote unquote talking to, you know, sure. the pow before you cut them. Yeah. You know, I think what's vital for employees is that they know what they're getting into. So before their first day, they get here, they sit down. The first thing they do is they review our policy and our handbook. Yep. They go over our rules. This is what's expected of you. They sign an agreement, an employee agreement. Yep. So there's not anything that they knew. They knew what was going on. They knew what the expectations were. No, I think the better thing is they signed it. Not that new. They signed it. You know, listen, your signature on here tells me that you read this. And if you didn't, that's on you. I've had a few of those over the years. Oh, what are you talking about? That's never been our procedure. Okay, can you go review the manual that you signed? And then let's have another conversation, right? So that employee manual is super, super, super important. You know, you should have some sort of onboarding package. You know, when somebody, hey, welcome to the team.
here's everything. Fill this out, sign this, make sure you do this, go get fingerprinted, blah, 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 blah. You got to do all that, and you got to get it to me in a timely fashion, right? In New York, they take it one step further, the sexual harassment stuff. Here's some stuff on sexual harassment. You got to read this. This is our policies and procedures. You need to sign off it. I got to keep that on file. And if I don't have that on file and there's a claim that happens, it's a problem, right?
Yeah, it's the same in California. Employees have to have 1 hour of sexual harassment training. Supervisors have to have 2 hours of sexual harassment training.
Yeah. And it's just the nature that we live in. Lawyers, right? You got to love them, right?
Yeah.
You can't live without them.
I'm keeping my, since 90% of my clients, I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
Exactly. I'm like 95, so I got you.
Yeah.
Good. So I think we're going to wind down here. Justin, this was so much fun, man. It was really great chatting with you about this. I think we are cut from the same cloth here, and
For sure.
Yeah, there's a reason why on LinkedIn we celebrate each other's victories.
Yeah.
We're following that same trajectory. So if folks want to get a hold of you, how would they get a hold of you?
Sure, they can, send me an email, justin@hodsonpi.com. I mentor a lot of investigators that are up and coming. Some of my mentorees have developed their own business and have their own employees. So I'm welcome to, send me an email. I'll give you some pointers, and I'm open to collaboration. They can also find me on LinkedIn. Right. Just look up Justin Hodson, and I'm there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your expertise here. I feel like there'll be another round 2 at some point. We'll get back.
Oh, cool, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, you get the re-invite. I think
All right.
You passed
Awesome.
the test there. So
cool.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch everybody next week on the next show. Take care.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thanks to Justin and Matt for discussing this great topic. Whether you're just starting your business or you've hit a growth spurt, we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you also to Campbell Insurance Group for sponsoring our show. Remember to tell them you listen to save $50 when you apply for insurance. Additional thanks to the PI Institute for Education, Crosstracks, Natalie for sponsoring this show. Thank you. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com. You can type in version 2.0 25% to save $50 when you join. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible, and we'll be back next week with a brand new show. So make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.